Greetings sailors and welcome to a view replay of World of Warships. This is Menthel in the Republique, and I think this is a game from last patch, although that doesn't have any particular effect as to the Republique. I don't think that's changed recently. Now I might seem a bit more jumbled than usual for this commentary, and this is actually being recorded pretty late on the 24th. It's been a bit of a weird day. A big thing at the moment is that my brother is moving to New Zealand and his flight is tomorrow as I'm recording, the 25th. So that's going to be a bit strange. He's not going to be in the same country as me anymore and I will definitely miss him. But on the other hand, I might get a chance to go and visit him at some point, and visiting New Zealand would definitely be a pretty cool thing to do. Although his journey is taking, he figured it at around 36 hours, including layovers. So yeah, it's not a journey that you do on a whim. So that's been one thing. The other thing is that Sam decided he was going to go missing for just over a day. I let him out yesterday evening and he just didn't come back, and then wasn't anywhere to be seen in the morning, and so I've basically just been sat glancing at the window every 5 minutes. I've just been sat fretting all day, which is totally sad, but it's what happened, and yeah, it's really unusual for him to be gone that long. So he's fine, he's back now. He appeared at like 8:30, 8 o'clock, something like that. Just looking totally casual, as if everything was normal and this is the sort of thing he does all the time. Absolutely no contrition on his fuzzy little features whatsoever. He is completely fine. So I have honestly no idea. Maybe he found himself another household for the duration of that time and decided to inveigle his way in there, because that's the thing cats do sometimes. In fact, my stepmother was quite, she sort of jokingly was talking about when I was talking about getting Sam, about how cats are, they're so faithless, and they'll just, you know, they'll go off, do their own thing, go to somebody else's house, they won't care. And I found this ironic because their Labrador, their surviving Labrador, is basically the same way. I mean, she'd be anybody's for a dog biscuit, basically. She will quite happily go home with complete strangers. There was one time when she went missing, they found her next door and they went to retrieve her, and then, you know, I sat and had a chin wag as one does, and when they got up to left, Meg was just like, no, I'm going to stay here, this is fine, I'm good. So dogs can be just as bad. They absolutely can, or they certainly can when they're Labradors, who are really anybody's for a pat on the head and a bowl full of food. She'd be a rubbish guard dog, she really would. Anyway, so yeah, my head's been a bit weird today, and I had a plan to record this much earlier in the day, and instead there's just been stuff going on in my head, but I'm managing it now. Sam is back, it's like 10 o'clock at night, and here I am having a stab at talking about a ship I honestly haven't played very much, although I do own the Republique. In fact, it was one I got a while ago. I've never really played it. It's a good ship, but for some reason it just isn't an interesting one for me to play, and that's not because it's French necessarily. I quite like some of the French line, and of them I think the Leon is probably the one I've played the most, though the Leon is a bit silly overall. But there's just something about the Republique that's just, I don't want to say boring, but very unadventurous, at least to me. It doesn't feel like it's going to do anything unexpected, if that makes any sense, which it probably doesn't. I'm really struggling to think of a way to put this. But yeah, it's very good at what it does. It's got a quick reload, you've got 8 guns, you've got very good penetration, the accuracy is pretty good as well. It's a pretty dangerous ship, especially if, like, that Yamato is doing, sailing along broadside, and quite frankly they're lucky they only got away with taking a single citadel there. It's also fast, it has a speed boost, and you can, if you want, deck it out for secondaries, although that is overall just going to be a less effective thing to do than with your German battleships. But still, somehow it just doesn't quite click for me. Oh, for anyone expecting me to be talking on, the current ongoing rumbling nonsense, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that Jim Sterling's covered it. Angry Joe Show did a bit in their news segment, and, it's been getting some traction, but I'm kind of saving the news stuff for the podcast, basically, and... well, it's what's dominated the discussion in the last 2 weeks, and you can bet this week is going to be absolutely no different. And in fact, I think the plan is to get a couple of the XCCs. We don't even know how many yet, but yeah, it might be more of a round table than a podcast. But we'll see. We'll see how that works out. Anyway, so yeah, it just felt a bit weird not addressing the elephant in the room, and that stuff is, of course, still all going on. It's just, that's in other content rather than this content, if that makes any sense. Nearing 100k, not bad. That Moskva is going to be a bit of an annoying nut to crack when they bow on like that, and their plan is maybe to try and pull back to where they can get unspotted, but actually no, it seems like they're going forwards. I mean, sometimes you'll see Moskvas and Petros doing that, and they'll just basically keep backing up until they're sure they're out of sight. But no, the Moskva is actually taking quite a risky turn there, because I mean, it's a dash towards the island, but they're then just kind of stuck there, and they now have absolutely no chance of getting unspotted, which is probably not going to go well for them in the long term, despite how good the armor is on that thing. Overall, the situation is a little uneven, shall we say. This team is finally getting some traction over at the A cap, but the enemy team has very firmly taken control of the other side and killed some of their ships to boot. And this is actually the direction in which Mental is heading, and I think he's just kind of realising that he's got to be a bit mindful of what might spot him from over on this side, because there's still enemy destroyers potentially on this side unaccounted for, and also the crossfire from battleships like that Cristoforo Colombo. And he must be being spotted by a destroyer at this point, because he was spotted even when the Colombo wasn't in sight, even when he hadn't been firing. Ooh, that was a nice solid hit there, 20k. So chances are they are being shadowed, him and this Thunderer, by a destroyer. Good news is, though, they've got the A cap. Bad news is they are slipping behind on points a little bit. And with the enemy team having 2/3 of the cap circles, that will, of course, continue unless they can outpace the enemy team in terms of kills. But it kind of doesn't seem like that's going to happen right now. The bulk of the team is over by A, and there is one Grosser Kurfürst that they can pick apart. But after that, they've got to push round that corner, and there's a Shima there. So we'll have to hope that... oh, hello, there's torpedoes. We'll have to hope that their own team is sufficiently paying attention to counter that. Now, that looks like a set of Shima slow 20-kilometre torps, because they got spotted really quite early, and they're not going very fast. So, well, at least we know where one of the enemy destroyers is. And there's something where actually the speed boost can come in quite handy sometimes. You can pop the speed boost and actually end up being able to dodge torps that in other battleships you might not be able to. And that Cristoforo Colombo obviously has him in his sights. It's actually, he's not using that captain skill. You know the one that tells you how many people are aiming at you that I can never remember the name of. But, you know, that one. So he can't tell precisely who is targeting him right now. He can only tell that he is still spotted by this destroyer and being kind of gradually forced back towards the border in the process, because he can't really afford to sail in such a straight line and just going to give broadside to stuff to the south. But if he heads in that direction, then that might be a problem as well. And oh, there we go. That's the Shimmer being radared by the Des Moines. By the other Des Moines. They've got 2 Des Moines on this this team. And they are hopefully going to get taken out. That will actually remove a rather major impediment to Menthel being able to maneuver. So there we go, the Des Moines takes them out. Menthel no longer has to worry about torps coming out of nowhere. Although, not really, like, it wasn't that big of a concern anyway, just because they are the slow, easy to spot ones. But even one of those, you know, they still hit really hard if they manage to hit. It's just they are a lot easier to see incoming. So time to turn back in. The enemy team looks like they are being a little more obliging in coming over on this flank, but overall the situation is still looking far from settled. You can see there the Kleber making a bit of a move on the BCAT, but they're going right into the face of that Puerto Rico. That's not going to end well. The Harugamo is there as well, so we know that's the location of another enemy destroyer, and the remaining Shima is to the south of the destroyers, the battleships rather, and the ACAP. So everything's looking a little more fragmented now on this side. There's a couple of ships that have pushed round south, including that Kleber, of course, who died. And then the other 3 ships remaining are up here, including Menthel. Now, he used his final heal there, which might not have been the wisest move. He might have been better off saving that heal for when he might more be able to fully use it. But it's easy, of course, to sit here and judge, second guess. It probably seemed like the right thing to do at the time when he was unspotted to get some health back. That Colombo is being very cagey, by the way. Maybe just the fact that he got hit for 20k before, and there we go, another 10k. These guns are really very nice. They definitely seem disinclined to be in any way aggressive, which is probably not the worst idea considering where they are right now, because if they tried pushing out, everything else is to the south of them apart from that Harugamo in the smoke. So they would basically be pushing into a 3 versus 1 focus, which is not really what you want to do, even in your top tier battleship. It's generally speaking not a good plan. I'm guessing that's another radar from the Des Moines, or maybe... I'm not actually sure how the Harugamo got spotted there. It might have been. It looks on the minimap like it might have been just within Des Moines radar range, but maybe they just kept firing out of the smoke and was spotted for a moment that way. That does happen sometimes. But either way, they're down, which is great. Now they are free to get the BCAP potentially, and there's 5 of them overall, and now only 4 of the enemy ships left. But although the Shima didn't manage to take out the Yamato and the Kurfürst that pushed south from A, they are now capping A. And that's obviously going to be a bit of a problem because things are still really tight on points, and that was their only cap. So the surviving Des Moines is going in there. Meanwhile, Menthel decided to get in the face of this Cristoforo Colombo. However, the Colombo, as it turns out, is not alone, because there's also a Kurfürst there. And there is still 1 other ship left as well, but they were last spotted. I can't even see what that is. Is that Slava? Something. They were last spotted well to the south. So the low health target is definitely the right one to go for here, and he doesn't quite do the right thing in terms of always focusing them. I think he gets a bit distracted. I have watched this through before, and I can't remember if he does actually shoot at the Colombo before he gets the Kurfürst or not, but absolutely in this kind of situation your focus should be on the Kurfürst. The Colombo is in a pretty decent position here though. It can angle relatively well, and those SAP shells can be quite nasty, the high caliber ones, so this isn't Right, even without the... Yeah, there we go, that shot there. You should have put that out at the curve first. But anyway, never mind. Hindsight and all that. Even without the aggressor curve first being in the equation, this still would have been a bit of a risky approach. And to be honest, maybe a bit too risky of an approach to make, considering where we are with the points. Maybe he should have kept his distance and at least tried to get into a position where he could stealth up if necessary. But now he's basically committed, and although he has taken out the curve first, which is great, he is about to go down himself. There's no way he has enough health here. And here's where having that heal around could have been useful. But as you'll have seen from the minimap, well, he's not the only one now approaching this guy, so he's about to get sunk. He does actually do a fairly meaty amount of damage before he goes down, but the Yamato very closely afterwards gets that kill, and if not him, then it would have been the Thunderer. So it wasn't that bad as a trade. He did take down a ship, but it also felt a bit unnecessary having to get sunk at all. But as an ending to the game, I mean, you look where we are on points. Definitely would have been better if he'd stayed alive. However, the fact that they now have A and B, and they're about to start capping C, or at least blocking C, we're in the last minute here, and yeah, this is going to be close. This is going to be very close. In fact, it looks like that Slava was AFK. They just sat down there. So well, that sucks for the enemy team. It really does. I mean, you never know exactly why someone's gone AFK, but in this case, it has cost them the game, potentially, not having that extra ship, because as we draw to that final couple of seconds, the enemy team isn't able to keep their points lead, and that's that. That's a win. 225,000 damage done, only a single kill, but yeah, it's still a pretty creditable game, and you can see, actually, one of the Des Moines and all of the survivors, they really were pulling their weight pretty well. It's one of those unusual games where, even though they, as a team, like, their destroyers weren't doing that well, they lost them comparatively early on. I think that was it the Kleber that was the last to die, and the enemy team still having destroyers at that point. Normally that's really bad. Having destroyers means having vision control and potentially cap control, but I guess the fact they still had radar cruisers left definitely would have negated that to a large extent, and their destroyers then not being more cautious around those surviving radar cruisers. So yeah, that could have gone very differently, certainly, had that Slava been in play, and maybe would have made Menthel be regretful of going in for that very close pass and getting sunk as a result of it. But as it was a win, and a jolly close one as well. So that's it for this late night recorded replay. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.